Hello, world. It's Paula, and this is the Common Book Show. I'm here with Richard and Nessa and James and my son Tom on drums. And I'm covered by a blanket because it's 13 degrees outside, and I brought the cold in with me, and it's inside my bones, and I can't get it out. So today, I'm going to probably be giving the most of the show over to Richard, but I will say that I have been still reading, and I will be for the probably the rest of my life, Plutarch's Lives, Volume One, and Herodotus, the histories, and listening to kids' books or fairy tales. I'm listening to The Wizard of Oz now, which is fun. But Richard is going to take over because I got nothing.
Okay, so a friend of mine sent me this post.
Uh-huh.
There's various discussion groups on the internet, and this is a discussion group among millennials,
Okay.
which means I believe they were born after the year 2000.
I don't know how that works. I
They're the
know,
one after Gen X, aren't they? The millennials, and then you've got Generation Z after that.
yeah, you've got X and Z.
So how old would a millennial be
It
in 2025?
could be up to 25, right? Because I thought,
Probably in the 30s.
so millennials started when?
Let's look it up on the internet and see the date range.
Here, I'll look it up. I got my phone over here. Okay.
It's a Blade Runner device.
Okay. Says, okay, it says the millennial generation includes people born between 1981 and 1996.
So they would be
They could,
in their 30s and 40s.
yeah.
Okay, so that'll give you some context because the discussion group, the topic was how to survive a full-time job.
I'd like to know about that myself.
Here's what this person wrote. Tell
Does
me,
it exist
here's what this
still?
here's what this person wrote. Tell me if you agree or disagree with it.
Okay.
Working your hardest and going above and beyond at your job doesn't guarantee you'll get any further there. It will guarantee you an unrealistic workload and a pace that you can't maintain for the long term. There's no better way to burn yourself out into the total misery. The best way to survive a full-time job is just doing your job and clocking the fuck out. You're far more likely to advance at a career by being well liked. Do yourself a huge favor and just strive for the middle. Take an opportunity every so often to shine and then go back to your regular average life pace. To maintain your mental health, be very nice to your coworkers. Average is not a bad thing in America.
I have some personal things to say about that. First of all, I found out at some point because I work quickly and efficiently that that was a mistake. Because what happens is and this is an Urdu saying, and in English it means the reward for doing work well is more work. Now that could be great if you're working as a freelancer, but if you're working in a company where everyone else is just working at a regular normal rate, and you're pushing yourself because I mean it's just more interesting to me for the most part to do things that aren't within my job description or what weren't. But honestly, I had to quit jobs because I had been given so much responsibility that it overwhelmed me and I had to leave. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. Some of it's off. Yes, you should be able to get along with your coworkers because you really don't have a big choice. You know, you should be able to speak up for yourself and if somebody is doing the wrong thing against you, you should be able to confront them and not always get along with them, because then you'll be a doormat. But working really, really hard is not going to make you appreciated. It's going to make you a doormat.
The thing that they said in there about career, I think, is an error, because I don't think there's careers anymore. There are just strings of constantly changing jobs. Career really isn't a thing.
That's also, now I've noticed this since I was working in New York in the 80s. And in New York in the 80s, you could get, if you were a decent a product, you could get hired anywhere. And it was, and they would do things to make your life better. Like, I worked places where they had a gym right in the building so that you could do that at lunch. I've worked places where they had a tennis court on the roof so you can play. There were all these perks, but something happened in the 2000s where there's something called Six Sigma.
Oh, yeah.
And Six Sigma is a way of doing things that's the most efficient. Not everybody, it's not geared toward individuality. It's geared toward pushing you as a person into no matter what shape you are, you're going into that round hole. So
one size fits all, like our society right now is
and putting as much pressure on you as possible, firing as many people as possible, and putting more pressure on the individual. So anybody right now that's in the workforce is a commodity. It's not a human being. I mean, I shouldn't say anybody. They are.
You're a commodity.
But in the corporate world, you're a commodity. You're making money for the company, and if you're not valuable in any other way.
Just look at the term human resource. You're a resource.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's an old term, but I don't think it was ever used the way it is now. And I left. That's one of the reasons when I got that job at Geico, I'd never seen anything like it. But they were working under the Six Sigma rules, and even making coffee. They had a set of rules for making a pot of coffee. And if you didn't do it exactly the way it was laid out, because that was the most efficient and effective, you would get yelled at. You would get in trouble. This is our policy. So,
well, there is a difference between calling that office personnel and human resources. Your personnel are your team members, and human resources is more like, we'll use you until you're put out to pasture or dumped for some reason.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's just the term, but I never thought I would live to see a day when people were so they're squeezed out like a sponge. We're going to get everything out of you. And so these people, these millennials they're obviously noticing they weren't really old enough to be working during the period of time of plenty in the 80s when people were being offered packages to take employment with different I mean, they weren't old enough then. All they see now is how they're being overworked. It's an overwork. Capitalism has gotten bad, Richard. It's not bad. No, I don't think it's innately bad. I think that there's a way of being humane capitalism, but this is not it. When you read that, how did you feel? What were you thinking?
I thought that you could put a title above that saying, How Workers Survive in a Capitalist Economy.
Ah, yeah. And that person that wrote that obviously has experienced this pretty strongly. And I'm glad I'm not working anymore. When I left, and I was working for a social services agency when I left the workforce, but even there, you were expected to do more than is humanly possible.
Always. They want the work of 20 people out of one person at least.
And I liked my job. I liked it. But I couldn't. There was no, and that's the thing. These new people, in this new generation now, the ones that are getting into the workforce now, they are looking for a good work-life balance, and they are getting criticized for it. They're getting criticized as being lazy, when in fact they're realistic. I don't see why. I mean, the idea of being he's a good worker. Who does that benefit? That benefits the person that owns the business. Oh, he'll often stay 10, 12 hours. Who does that benefit? It's not benefiting the person. The person's life is falling apart. Yeah, maybe they get a couple more dollars, but what are they doing? They're spending it on other stuff that other corporations own. You don't need all that shit.
Go to the thrift store. Too bad there's no more flea markets, but yeah.
Okay.
I like to buy old stuff if I can.
99-cent sweater. Anyway.
James, have you ever been in a job where you felt that you were being squeezed?
It's hard to think of one that I didn't feel that way.
But you've been self-employed most of your life, haven't you?
I'd say half of my life, yes.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, tell us about your employment situations.
Well, the thing to understand is that I was in the work world as a perceived to be black man in America, and there's a whole bunch of other crap that goes along with that. So, for instance, I had done coursework for things like administrative assistant, and I didn't have big breasts, so they didn't want to hire me to sit behind a desk and type or answer phones. And whenever I went to a job interview, they would always say something like, "Oh, well, we don't have any jobs on the docks right now. Why don't you come back?" And I was like, "I brought my resume. Could you look at it?"
You know what's funny about that, James, is that before World War I guess, women weren't considered smart enough to do any kind of administrative assistant or secretarial work. It was men. Men had those jobs. Men were the ones who were assistants. And then when women took over that, and yes, of course, the attractiveness doesn't hurt you in the job market. But and now with in our society, it's always considered a woman's job. I mean, once in a while now you'll go into an office and you'll see a guy as a receptionist or something like that. But it was women were doing those jobs, and all of a sudden that was denigrated. The work was denigrated, and it was kind of sad. Because it takes, the secretary is the one who holds the door. You're not nice to that secretary, you're not getting in that office. And that's how it was with men too. But I don't know. So
if you think back to like that Dickens Christmas Carol novel, Bob Cratchit was sort of like in that role.
Yeah, And men were always in those roles until World War One.
Yeah.
So, did you what did you end up doing, James? Did you end up working in an office?
Mostly, they didn't give me office jobs. The office jobs I did get were always situations where I wouldn't be at a traditional desk and no one would ever see me. So maybe I'm doing, as the joke goes, the TPS files in a storeroom somewhere with a desk that's just been stuffed into this room that formerly held a mop and bucket. And I'm just doing this really boring, grinding kind of work. And there's nobody else in the room but me.
Yeah, my first job out of high school was making catalogs on the back room for an inhalation therapy place. So I know I see that office in my mind's eye. Right?
Does that mean you can be healed by what you inhale in the air?
No, it means it's for people who need oxygen at home. You know, like sick
Ah.
people who need oxygen. They would have other things too, but I don't remember. I was 17, you know, so it was a long time ago. But they would get these things of oxygen delivered to their house so that they could breathe at home. But no inhalation therapy. I don't think they even thought like that in the 70s. I don't think that was a thing.
James, can people heal themselves by breathing the right fragrances in the air?
I don't know about breathing fragrances, but certainly increasing the amount of oxygen in your system is a good thing.
Oh, so those hyperbolic chambers you would recommend.
Oh yeah, your friend was here who had a hyperbolic chamber, right?
Hyperbaric, yes.
Hyperbaric. I don't know what it is.
Hyperbaric.
Yeah. Do you ever do that?
I have, yes.
Have you heard of these, Vanessa?
Yeah.
You know, it's like almost like a tent that you inflate, and then you get in there with a higher level of oxygen.
I went to an
My
oxygen.
parents,
Yeah. Oh,
my parents would hate that because all they like to do is breathe cigarette smoke. If I'd open the window, my father would throw a fit because I was letting the smoke out. Literally.
I went to an oxygen bar in Vegas with my niece Beth.
And how do you inhale it at the bar?
It's like a little mask, and you just inhale it in, and it was kind of funky. It was interesting. But do you feel better after you do that, James?
Well, I do. Inessa actually sleeps in the chamber sometimes.
Really? Can you get too much oxygen?
Not through that route, no.
Oh, okay. Curiouser and curiouser. So, so Richard, do you think that the people that do you think they have the right idea by, but don't you think it's sad
Yeah.
that you have to be mediocre in order not to be taken advantage of?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's a sad state of affairs.
That's how it's always been since I went to school. When I went to school, they loved the kids who got C averages and catered to them. And if you were real smart, like I always got the highest grades, like you were ignored or seen as some sort of freak, or it was like they treated the average kids so much better. They had this one group of kids that were like sort of stupid, like the D average kids, and they'd get to go on extra field trips. And if you were smart, you didn't get to go on them. So it was sort of like a punishment for being smart ever since I can remember.
Well, when I worked for the state, well, it depends on who you work for. My boss, when I worked for the state for VESID, he knew that I was smarter than my grade level, so he would give me special projects, and I did them because it was fun, even though I wasn't getting paid in that grade level, because it was more fun than doing the typing stuff.
Hmm.
But so it depends on who you're working for. But they didn't like him either in the state because he was not a bureaucrat enough, and he got a lot of flack. So
Yeah, that seems they encourage average mundanity. That's what's encouraged overall in society, especially now.
you do incur the wrath of your fellow employees if you do stand out in some way.
Hmm.
You know, how did you run your office, Richard?
Uh,
An iron fist.
I got pushback from my employees for being too unconventional.
Well, how did that unconventionality manifest itself?
We had a person who was brought in who was in his 70s. He was hired. His name was Roger. And Roger was an innovator. So he would always find things in the trash and bring them into the office and say, look, this will help us get organized here. And people didn't like that. They did not like the fact that he was introducing new ideas. And I was always in Roger's camp saying, why don't you try this out? Maybe he's got a good idea.
Yeah.
That's how successful businesses should be run. I mean, I think the businesses that are most successful are the ones that are open to new ideas, and the ones that have the strict way of doing things without accepting any possibilities of change or innovation are the ones that eventually fail.
Yeah, they're gonna right. Those are going to be the rigidity is a at the end of rigidity comes death. You can't grow if you're rigid.
In today's New York Times, as if you've been following the news, the Chinese came out with a form of AI using chips that are 10 times less expensive.
I've heard something about it, but like I said, I've been ignoring the news lately.
So the AI research community is panicking in America. The most advanced of all the companies that do AI is called ChatGPT. And in the Times today, he said to a meeting which was attended by the press, I'm seriously thinking about taking all of our code that we've developed so far and just putting it out for everybody to see, seeing if anybody will come up with ways to improve it.
Who runs the company?
I think it's Sam Bankman-Fried or something like that, or Sam Altman something.
Really?
Yeah.
And
obviously they were not happy when he said that.
no, because that's not going to result in profits for the company.
Yeah, it was like Tesla wanting to disseminate free electricity through the ground and Westinghouse preventing it. Yeah,
Yes.
seems sort of
Good analogy. Did you know that?
No.
Tesla was working on a way to send electricity through the air. So if you bought a receiver,
Like a radio.
it would be a radio for electricity. So if you bought a receiver, everything you plugged into it, you got free electricity.
Wow.
And George Westinghouse, who owned the biggest electrical company in the world, pretended to be his friend and said, I'll help you with this invention, and then wound up sabotaging it. It mysteriously burned down one day.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, just before it was about to be tested.
That's the money thing again.
Yeah.
We can't get away from that. And yet the
money itself is an illusion. It only has value because people believe it does. It's backed by nothing but faith.
well, that's what
Especially now.
that's what I've always said that. I said there's going to come a time when the only thing of any value is food.
Yeah.
And things that are necessary for life.
Yeah. think we're
Because
getting there
those are
pretty
the
soon.
only things that really have intrinsic value. The things that keep us alive, like this blanket.
Right.
But money, jewelry. Think about that. Think about precious metals and diamonds. All those things really have no value. I mean, maybe
Diamonds have a value, and that's the hardest thing on earth, and they
right,
can cut. They
right.
have a practical
They
value.
do have. I was just
And
gonna
gold
say
is the
that.
best conductor of electricity, so that also has a practical value. And I often wondered if the reason that humans thought they had value is because alien races or alien space creatures that came here, overlords, figured that out, and they could make use of diamonds and they could make use of gold in the ways they were intended,
That's
especially for higher level technology.
that might be the
That would make it
best.
make
Yeah,
sense.
that might be the best argument for space aliens being here in the before that I've ever heard.
Well, I believe that humans are like a hybrid of like the primate and alien DNAs merged together.
It's possible. We don't know. You know, we will. I mean, there may come a time when we figure it out and they say, what is this DNA from? We don't have anything in the
Humans
Neanderthal.
are genetically engineered. They're genetically engineered. They're not created. They're not created directly by the so-called creator. They were engineered by sub-creators created by the creator. Therefore, when people start talking about God made you this or that as you are, no, a demigod made you under God. A creator, you're not a direct creation. Humanity is not a direct creation.
Well, I mean, I've heard
Other
different,
animals and creatures might be, but I
religious.
don't believe.
I've heard different religious things about these demigods that created
And
man. But
Jehovah or JHVH or YHVH, whatever they want to call him, that demigod, that's the one that they attribute to being a god right now, but is really a super narcissistic, evil, cruel, mean-spirited alien. You read the Bible and you read
So
the edicts, you read the stories, you read the laws and all that. None of
yeah.
that's kind.
Well, I know if you read the Old Testament and in your mind you have the idea that aliens have come down from other planets to the Earth. You can get a lot of information. A lot of the writings sound like bright white light creatures coming down from the sky. That kind of stuff. You can see where somebody could read that text into that, but I don't know. I leave my mind open for alien visitation, but I haven't seen any proof.
The Anunnaki,
What's an Anunnaki?
they're you don't know about them?
I don't.
They were space overlords
Oh,
of humanity.
that's why I don't know about them. I have no space aliens as
You need
personal.
to listen to Coast AM, although they're turning more Trumper. They used to be more about cool shit like aliens and outer space and the paranormal. And now, whenever I listen to it, they have a bunch of shills on there praising Trump, and it's like totally transforming the radio show. You can't even get away from it there on a program like that. That's supposed to be not about that. It's like he's omnipresent. He's everywhere. I look everywhere, and everywhere you go, Trump's in there somehow.
I know I can't
No matter
even
what it is,
when I
every
go to
news
look
group-
when I go to look at my Yahoo mail because I got a Yahoo address for email. It's like there's like 4 different pictures of Trump with different things, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the
I've never
hell?
seen such a mass dissemination of anything in my life.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on, and so I guess they have to.
Well, no, it's really apparent compared to any other president or leader. Maybe the closest thing you could get to might be something like Hitler in Germany being all over the place. But since I wasn't alive to see that, I wouldn't have a direct comparison.
He does. He
But
is.
in my lifetime, it seems like
He's disrupting.
really
That's
skewed.
why everything's being disrupted, and that's why
And
there's
the
so much.
the media really helped him get elected again.
We need
by-
right. We need to.
All the media,
Used to be,
including the so-called mainstream,
and Richard and
just by disseminating him all the time.
yeah, Richard and I remember the old news when the guy would come on the news and he would tell you the story and he wouldn't have an opinion. He
Yeah,
would-
Walter
yeah, and
Cronkite.
say, and
David
that's
Brink.
all the news that's fit to tell. And now we have 24 hours a day of all the news that's shit to tell.
More than half of it's fabricated and fake.
Well, I can't do it anymore. All right, so let's go to another topic. Richard
You
said,
saw the movie Baby Girl.
"Oh, I did."
So for purposes of the audience, let me give you a recap. The movie asks the question, if you find one day that you're married to someone with a sexual kink, do you support them and play along with it? Do you encourage them to go and find a play partner? Or do you divorce them and go your separate ways? So you have Nicole Kidman and Antonio Banderas.
Right.
And Nicole Kidman Antonio Banderas discovers that Nicole Kidman has this kink where she likes to be treated like a dog.
Well,
She's attracted to the guy because
she-
she saw,
yes.
and then at the end she fantasizes that she's with the guy and the guy's with the dog. The last scene.
yeah, right. No, but I don't know that he ever figured out.
Oh, he did, because he goes along with it and he tries to be that way in the final scene with her.
Okay, all right, yeah. So she does. She explains it to him, but he doesn't figure it out. She explains it to him, and the thing is,
Well, he catches them together.
yeah. But that character, I found the character fascinating, the young guy, because he was very empathic, and he knew. I mean, because he was having a little to do with one of the younger interns as well, or the younger people in the company, not an intern, and he was not like that with her. So he was empathic, and he could figure out, like, somehow without words, what a person was into sexually. He had this insight. So that character was interesting to me. And she, obviously, there were some flashes in that movie. I don't know if you caught them. In the beginning, when the first scene where she had sex with her husband and then she has to go and masturbate. And she's playing porn. And in that porn segment, there's something about daddy.
Yeah.
So that was my first clue that something may have happened to her as a child. And then she had trauma therapy. It was so subtle. The only reason I know about this is because I read about this trauma therapy of light, flashing lights that they use, and you're putting your eyes back and forth. And they,
EMDR.
yes, EMDR, and they had a scene of that, very short, very, if you blinked, you would have missed it. So she had something going on from her past that was still, and in cases like this, a lot of times people become overachievers, and she was definitely an overachiever in her business life. So those were the things that interested me about this. I think Banderas, I know in some cases when there's infidelity, people can forgive, but it's so hard to get that trust back once you've lost it. I don't know how people get through those episodes of infidelity. And I don't know that.
You don't.
I don't think Banderas, I think he's got some wishful thinking going on.
Yeah, of course, it's a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Ain't reality.
Yeah, but because it's not so much the cheating, it's the lying. And you've lost trust. If you have trust in a person and you are in a relationship with them and you trust them implicitly, and it turns out that they fucked you over,
It's really rough.
There's no getting that back.
It's really rough when you're in a relationship where the person you're with lies to you at least 90% of the time, and you find that out over time, but you just keep finding it out 90% of the time. Every little thing, big thing. That's what I was in.
And I've had a relationship where the person told me that they enjoyed the same things that I enjoyed, and I was in this relationship for years, and I never knew until the end when he finally told me. I never liked that shit. I never liked going to the theater. I never liked any of that stuff. I just did it because, Right. And that was,
What a waste of life.
and then, and then when Greg and I started being friends, and the first thing he said to me, look, I'm going to tell you now, if you want to do something and I don't like it, I'm just going to tell you, I don't like that shit. And I started laughing and I said, that's the best thing I've ever heard. You know, because I had just been, somebody had violated my trust. You know, and I would rather have somebody be bluntly honest with me. So I don't know. But I don't know how that character is ever going to be able to get, Banderas is going to be able to get past it.
Mm.
And she wasn't past it. Do you think she was? Do you think that
No.
I'm going to go and look for somebody else again?
Oh. She was going to find another play partner.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, it's an interesting scene where Antonio Banderas walks in where she's with her play partner. Mm-hmm. The first thing he does is he fights the guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then the second thing he does is he calms down and he says to this play partner, you do realize that what she and I have is real love. What you have with her, she's using you. She's just using her to satisfy her kink. You're
Yeah.
nothing to her. That doesn't persuade the play partner. What persuades the play partner
course not.
is when Ontario Banderas grabs his chest like he's having a heart attack. Suddenly, this boyfriend realizes, wow, I'm in over my head here. I got to get out of here. This is way heavier than I thought if I'm going to cause somebody's death.
Yeah.
That's when he moves to Tokyo.
Yeah. But
Now, I was reminded,
I don't know. Was she
Somebody just moved to Tokyo.
using him or was he using her?
well, that's a matter of interpretation.
She used him, he used her, neither of them can. They're getting it shared. Working on that night
Night.
blues. There was a movie, unfortunately, I can't remember what it was, probably one of those John Hughes films, but there's a scene where these two boys are in the lunchroom talking, and the thing that's happened is this girl has dated this guy while her real boyfriend is out of town. So she basically has like a 2-week fling with this nerd and they have sex. But when her quote real boyfriend comes back, she breaks it off, doesn't talk to him at all anymore. And the two boys are in the lunchroom talking about it. And the guy says, yeah, so, he's back in town and I'm out the door. And I was doing her homework and everything. But you know what that means, right? And the one guy says, she totally used you for sex. And he says, yeah, is it great? High five.
So I was reminded of when the kink community had a show here every month for 5 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was this couple that came to one of the podcasts, and they revealed that the man they were married.
Yeah.
That the man discovered during their marriage that he liked whipping women and hurting them.
Yikes.
And the wife said,
Yeah,
well, I'm
yikes.
not going to divorce you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's a kink community we can join so you can find a play partner, which he did. And I've often wondered, now that was probably 10 years ago. Do you think they stayed together? Like, was that a solution?
I don't. It wouldn't have been for
Probably
me.
not.
Probably
But-
not. What would you say, James? You think they're together to this day?
They could be, because the things that keep people together are having some mutuality, and he washes her back and she washes his. I've seen lots of people make things work that you wouldn't think would work. For instance, people where they're married and the one partner comes out as transgendered, 10, 20 years into the marriage. And I've had lots of people who just decide, this person is my best friend, and I don't necessarily understand the whole trans thing, but if we can continue to have everything else that we have together, we can make this work.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit that the average situation is a divorce, but there's a certain number of people, maybe 20, maybe 30%,
Yeah.
who actually come to peaceful resolution on that.
Greg and I have basically had this conversation, and I told him if he came out as transgender, I would stay with him, and he told me unequivocal, I can't even say that word, unequivocally,
Unequivocally.
unequivocally, he would not. You know? It's like- which is fine with me because it's not an issue. I'm not angry about it. But
Well, the issue that Greg would be having is something that lots of people haven't considered, which is if your partner becomes trans and they actually do the transition and you stay with your partner, we have to make up a word for this. If a woman is married to a man who becomes a woman, you become a social lesbian.
okay,
Because to the world, you look like you're in a relationship with a woman.
right.
And now you have to deal with all that comes with being in a lesbian relationship, though you are not a lesbian.
That's true. That is true. I'm just glad that we live in a society now where people are able to be who they are.
No, we don't, because Trump just rolled it all back.
Well, I know, it's awful, and hopefully it'll be done in 4
We did.
years.
The old rules aren't applying anymore, but it's a new world now, and people need to realize that it's as drastic as if Hitler's back in power, like when he had them burn down the Institute of Sexuality in Berlin, that all the research Magnus Hirschfeld did into things like transgender and gender roles and sexual identity and different kind of intersex things. And all that research was destroyed in the 1920s, and we still haven't recovered what that research was. And now we're not.
I
Now
didn't
they're
know
going to
about
probably
that. Yeah.
they're going to destroy the research we have now. They're going to erase all kinds of things while they're in control.
But if you have any knowledge of historical gender roles, you'll know that in India there's the Hejira, and you'll know
yeah, but
that in
the Trumpers won't admit that. You know all this stuff. You have the Mahu and what is it?
Native
Hawaii,
Americans have the second.
You have the
second
Two-Spirit
wife.
Native Americans. But since Western white colonial society is based on Christianity, and they go according to the old Genesis, he made the man and woman, the duality, the good, evil, the binary. That's really pushed, and that's what they're going back to. They don't want to consider any other cultures. Anything from any other culture is valid. And you can see that with their whole thing about getting rid of DEI. And they're not just attacking trans people, they're attacking anyone who isn't a white Christian nationalist heterosexual breeder.
Speaking of which, who does anybody want to make a comment on that that Hitler salute thing?
Yeah, sure.
That what's his name? The guy
from Musk. Elon
yeah.
Musk.
Yeah.
Musk did.
He knew what he was doing. He was playing to that crowd. They love that stuff.
Because then he also was on some kind of a video conference with some kind of really, really right wing German
Right.
party,
Right.
and he was having
He was praising their ideals.
involved in
Yeah.
this meeting that they had. So I mean, if it was alone, I'd say he's a doofus and he just did the wrong hand thing. But no, I think that was a
It's intentional. It's part of the fascist playbook to do the thing, then deny it and deflect it off onto your enemy and say that they're the ones guilty of doing it, even though you're the one that
well,
did it.
that's why I'm so
Cause
glad
confusion.
I'm so glad I saw that Trump movie, because it showed how much he learned from his lawyer and just deny everything, deny and lie, deny and lie.
It's funny now. Did you notice the thing about the egg prices? This is the hot new thing these days. The egg prices, while Biden was in, they kept complaining about high egg prices and, of course, high gas prices and stuff like that. But the eggs were a big thing, and they say that's why Biden lost. A lot of people say it's the egg prices because Trump vowed to bring prices down. And now that he's not doing it, all his followers are coming up with memes with Biden followers crying about egg prices, and they're flipping it. They're turning it backwards. They're the ones who initiated the whole egg price thing.
Yeah.
And now they're saying that it's the
I
Biden voters
I haven't
that
seen
did.
that, but it doesn't surprise me.
And now they're happy that the egg prices are high, and they're saying, oh, a president has no control over the economy or prices. But when Biden was
Yeah,
in, the
I know.
president had nothing but control over the prices.
I
And
know.
they are inconsistent, and they never have a straight line. That's whatever suits their needs, and they flip-flop, and it's just like Trump himself.
Yeah, I know. That's what's been happening. Richard, why don't you were going to
Oh,
say something?
Okay, I think that the Nazi salute thing definitely made Elon Musk look bad on a couple
To some
levels,
people.
because he didn't think that would be insensitive. It
Oh, he knew it.
It also made another group look really bad in my eyes.
Who's that?
The Anti-Defamation League. They're a watchdog group funded by Israel to sniff out anti-Semitism. Immediately after the salute happened, all these reporters went to the Anti-Defamation League and said, what's your comment on this? And they said, well, we're going to make a public statement tomorrow. And then they made the public statement. We feel it was a variation on the Roman salute. That Mr. Musk is a friend to Israel.
Has he donated money?
Yeah. Yeah.
Money is evil. I mean, I like it for
The love of money is evil.
okay. Money itself isn't evil. You're right. That you are correct.
Money's just a tool.
Money. It is a tool, and it's a badly used tool right now. But
Well, Musk plays to the audience in attendance there. He knows they would love that, and he knows that they know what it means. And half of them will admit it. Half of them will say, yes, it's a Nazi salute, and that's awesome, and we love it because we love Nazis and we love Hitler, and that's all over Facebook right now. Hitler's the most mainstream thing going right now. But the other half are the gaslighters and the deflectors who are fascists and Nazis, and they know that they are, but they like to say that the left is. And have you seen where they take the pride flag and turn it into 4 rainbow-colored swastikas? And they like to say that the LGBTQ
No, I haven't seen
community
that.
are the Nazis. And they also like to, and of course they're splintering the LGBTQ thing into just the LGB without the T or the I or A. I don't know how the intersex gets chopped off, because that's a whole nother thing that's, I think, transcends all of it, because that if they want to talk about biological reality,
right.
intersex
That
is the
is.
one that's most based in biological reality.
Absolutely.
Yet they deny its very existence. But the whole thing
Well,
is
they
half
can't.
of the fascists
If
will
they-
admit they are, and the other half say that the left are the fascists.
Yeah.
And
I
there's
know.
no consistency within their own group either.
And it's chaos, and chaos is a tool in itself to keep us off guard. Not off guard, but off balance.
Overwhelmed, so you can't react.
Off
Overwhelmed, so
balance.
you can't think. Overwhelmed, so that you're easier to control.
Right now, I'm very easy to control because I'm not paying attention. I'm so bloated with this, all of this information. I can't even, I know who I am and I know what's important to me, but I can't watch it anymore. It's making my brain bloody.
We got a comment
I wonder why people are fighting about everything these
But we
days.
got a comment. Where this is from.
from
Yeah.
our friend Mick.
Mick, thank you for watching, Mick. Yeah,
Division. A lot of division engineered by the powers that be. If you can get the lower classes fractioned off into splinter groups fighting against each other, then you don't have class war. You don't have the 99% at the bottom coming for the 1% at the top.
that's exactly
And the
right.
1% at the top are the billionaires, and the 3 billionaires behind Trump at his inauguration, and they run everything. It's the billionaires protecting their own skin. Someone pointed out that what's being attacked is the 1% of trans people instead of the 1% of billionaires. And that's really interesting that it's the number 1%.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Wow, I like that.
yeah. That sounds like it's a possible. But you know what? Let's
Divide
find
and conquer.
a common enemy. Let's find a common enemy. You know.
Divide and conquer. And you get the they're trying to splinter off the whole LGBTQIA thing too. They have their factions of the LGB without the T, and then they got the ones that are all inclusive, and then you've actually got trans people that just want to break off and be their own thing, and they're getting all them to fight within each other. So they have divisions within divisions, fights within fights, and
Well-
it's sort of like reminds me of the whole Illuminati power saying of secrets within secrets. But it's always things within things, like a nesting doll. Like you keep opening it and there's more of them, but it's a nesting doll of divisions.
Yeah, I'm.
And it keeps the oligarchs in control.
Yeah,
And the media run by the oligarchs completely encourages it, from social media to mainstream media to Fox News to Newsmax to whatever media outlet, going from left. There is really no left anymore. They call it left because it's less right than the far right, but it's all really right, really. But you look at all the media, and no matter which one you pick, it all comes down to the same thing of creating division and stoking the fire, beating the drum, and like they keep promoting the same things and putting the same things in the news feed and sensationalizing stories on the same topics
Yeah,
while ignoring others.
and
It's all
repeating.
social engineering. Yeah, repetition.
repeating and repeating and repeating and every
Mm-hmm.
like once in a while, I'll say, okay, I'm going to put on, what is that? CNN. I'm going to put on CNN. I'm just going to see what they're talking about. And it's like a soap opera. You could not watch it for 6 weeks, and when you turn it back on, you know exactly what they're talking about because it just doesn't change. The plot line just
What
doesn't
are some
change.
good news sources? BBC used to be better. There used to be Al Jazeera.
Yeah,
like all those-
BBC. I listen to that on NPR sometimes, and that seems to be way more balanced.
But if you go to news sources from other nations, often you find more things out, and they are actually a more clear picture of what's going on. I would not trust any media in the United States at all.
Well, Richard follows some different.
Oh, I follow Democracy Now! Every day. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't even gotten up the courage to go there. I'm just broken. I'm broken. Okay, we've got like 6 minutes left. Do you have a?
The death of Marianne Faithfull.
Oh,
That's
when
an
did she
interesting
die?
story. 2 days ago.
It is the evening of the day.
I know you got to sing "Why'd You Do It."
Watch the children play.
So here's a thought experiment.
Okay.
Okay. So she was Mick Jagger's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She got pregnant, and complications happened during the delivery, and the baby died.
Mm-hmm.
And Mick said, don't worry, I'll stick with you. I'll stick by you. In fact, the Stones are going on tour. come with us so I can be with you. Mm-hmm. She did. But her depression came with her too. Mm-hmm. And while they were on tour, she took an overdose of sleeping pills. Suicide attempt. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this is bad publicity for the Stones.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Mick Jagger thinks, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with somebody who has suicidal tendencies.
Yeah.
So he abandons her. Her depression gets even worse, and she goes into decades-long drug addiction. Okay, so she dies. If you're a friend of Mick Jagger, and he says to you in 2025, I don't know, do you think I should go to the funeral? What do you say?
Do as thou will.
I think it would be. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because
Because I know what I would say, but I want to hear what other people
Well,
would say.
I would say that, the fact that, you can't control somebody's, their mental state. You can't. She lost the baby, which was obviously very hard on her. I'm sure she wasn't stable before that. It doesn't sound like she had a lot of mental stability. Can you blame a person for not wanting to be in a long-term relationship with somebody who's constantly trying to kill themselves?
I can understand that. Yeah.
I don't blame
like
him.
that's a lot of stress in your life.
I don't blame him for that. And
Yeah.
so,
Although constantly, this was just one time, so
but she
who knows how many times it
Yeah,
would
plus
happen.
she's-
Maybe it was just one incident.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's Mick Jagger.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a lot of partners. It's not like he got one partner after that and he kept her. I mean,
He supposedly treats his own kids like garbage too. Anyway, he's not like really a very
but I mean,
empathetic person. He's not known for that.
he could
Yeah.
go. He could go if he wanted to, but I don't think that he should go if he doesn't want to.
Mm.
I mean, I think it's should be more his own feelings about it. Because it was a long time ago. Will I go to?
It's almost like if he went, it would be him making peace with the past.
Yeah. Yeah, but
If he even cares.
But if he even cares, exactly. I'm thinking.
This might not even be crossing his mind at all. He might not even be thinking about it.
Well, I think if somebody that you've been in a relationship with dies, I think you do. You still have part of your life and part of your memory is still revolves around that person. What do you
Maybe to some
think,
people.
Richard?
I would say, Mick, you should go. It'll be good for your mental health, but take a bodyguard with you because there are probably members of her family that blame you for the trajectory of her life.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be very friendly to you, but you should still go and you should face their wrath. It's the right thing to do.
Well, don't you think he always travels with a bodyguard, though?
Well, in this
Probably.
case, yeah. In this case, I would highly recommend
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I wouldn't. If I was Mick Jagger, I would travel with a bodyguard.
Mm.
He's been seen at Wimbledon by himself without bodyguards.
Yeah, I know. And he went to, when he was in Buffalo, they went to that one Italian restaurant on Hurdle. A couple of the guys from the band.
Mm-hmm.
And they also toured a couple different places. And
What
they
restaurant was that?
went Lombardo's.
Okay.
And they also went to the Darwin Martin house.
Mm.
I don't know if they had a bodyguard with them or not, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
And you yourself said it was a moving experience.
It was beautiful. It was a piece of art. It was a house that was a piece of art.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say that funerals are for the living, so he should go if there was something positive that he thought he could get out of it, and if not, then he shouldn't go.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and that's also for the living relatives. I don't know. I mean, right. I agree with you. Go if you think you need to, and don't go just because you think you have to.
Mm.
you gotta make that distinction. Okay, we got 20 seconds left. So I want to thank everyone who came and was here with us, and I want to thank this lovely warm blanket for keeping me warm. And we will see you all next week on the Common Book Show.